This episode is brought to you by Roon. Roon 1.8 is an immersive new music experience featuring a new look, new intelligence, and new features designed for music fanatics. Click the link in the description box below for more information.
What is this mega hi-fi system I have set up behind me? Well, we've got the Vivid Kaya S12 loudspeakers that we introduced in part 1 of this coverage, but feeding them is a beast of a system. So we start with the Raspberry Pi touchscreen. That goes out USB into a USB split-off converter from Resonnessence Labs, who are now defunct sadly. Coax out of that into the RME ADI2 FS DAC, the original AKM version. Out of the RME into a Schiit Freya Plus preamplifier. Out of the Schiit into the KEF KEC62 sub. And then back out of the sub into a Peachtree GAN400 power amp, and then into the speakers. And you may ask yourself, how did I get here? So in the previous video, we introduced the Kaya S12. In this video, I want to talk about the electronics I use to maximize their sound quality for my particular, personal tastes and my taste in music as well. Because as we all know, an amplifier can have a fairly significant impact on the sound of a loudspeaker. And that's even more the case with the Kaya S12 from Vivid Audio than pretty much any speaker I've played with in the last couple of years. And as stand mounts like these are 6 dB down at 45 Hertz, we don't get the bottom octave. The call for a subwoofer is never really far away. And playing something like the Pole 3 CD compilation, which is fantastic by the way, German abstract dub techno with a load of glitch on it, playing that really made me feel that I wanted a sub with these Vivid far more than I do when I have the LS50 Meta in play. And that's using the NAD M10 V2 amplifier. And the great thing about that amplifier is that it has a bass management system that I can just one click and it will design the crossover for the sub and the mains. It'll high pass the mains, low pass the sub. And the sub reporting for duty in answering this call was the KEF KC62, which you can see on the floor behind me. Now this newly formed 2.1 system proved fantastic for John Tejada's Sleepwalker album that I've mentioned in the last video. But the treble proved to be a little bit too wiry for girls in airports, the Mutton Birds, and Grantley Buffalo. Just a bit too wiry. Not a huge amount, but just enough to kind of be slightly irritating. The ENLEUM AMP23R that we made a video about a few weeks ago, I pulled that out. Now that has a greater sense of richness. There's no wiriness in the treble, that's all gone, but it lacks the propulsion in the bottom end because it only gives us 25 watts per channel, and the Kaya S12 are, I think, 87 dB efficient. They're 8 ohm nominal, but 87 dB. That's not like 99 dB that we get from the Klipsch or the Zoo. So then I moved over to the HEGEL H390, and I didn't know it at the time, but this moved me much closer to my final destination mega system. Because the HEGEL's combination of high damping factor and far more output power gave a much more sort of rounded, fuller, pleasing take on things like Grantley Buffalo and the Mutton Birds album. Not perfect, not as good as my mega system here, but it got me one step closer. But the other limitation of the HEGEL is that it doesn't allow for very easy integration of a sub. Not with the high pass filtering that I've become so accustomed to using these days. So what I needed was a preamp and a power amp where I could then divert the signal to the sub and then come back. And that led me to pulling off the shelf the Schiit Freya Plus and the Peachtree GAN400. And then, coming out of the Schiit into the sub does the filtering both for itself and for the mains, and then that mains output goes back into the Peachtree amp and then out to the loudspeakers. Pretty convoluted, I know, but yeah, the lengths we go to sometimes. So with this Schiit Peachtree pre-power combination, I had muscle on tap and I had a high degree of finesse in the top end. And that was really great, like truly exceptional for a track by Robin Hitchcock called The Cheese Alarm, which is him lamenting him putting on weight from just eating so much cheese. And what I really noticed about this Schiit Peachtree combination was that Robin Hitchcock's acoustic guitar plucks, I'm about to say something highly pretentious here, were sculpted to much finer points than they were with the HEGEL. So the net result here was a less matter-of-fact, more easeful, more beautiful sounding Kaya S12, which is perfect for the sort of harder, steelier recordings like the Pet Shop Boys' debut Please that came out in the mid-80s. And of course, the low end could be dialed in to taste using the gain setting on the KC62. The spicy finding for this video is as follows. When I took the sub out of the picture, so went direct from the Schiit preamp into the Peachtree and then engaged tube mode on the Schiit preamp, something unexpected took place. So basically the Vivid Audio speakers managed to display a fuller, fatter, richer bottom end with no sub in play than they showed me with the NAD with no sub in play. And it was a result that halfway quenched my thirst to put the sub right back, because I didn't. Now we're not talking about deeper bass here, we're just talking about a fleshing out of the existing bass from having no sub. And for most music that I listen to, this combination, the Schiit Pre, the Peachtree power amp, no sub, was perfectly satisfying, and I really didn't miss the sub at all. But that's not the case with the NAD or with the HEGEL. So there must be something going on here with the Schiit preamplifier and its tube mode. But this review is not about the Schiit, so I wasn't about to go and take a side investigation into preamplifiers. I just had to kind of live with the findings that I have and then present them to you. And for me, this mega system is the spot on balance between lean in and then lean back listening. So do the Kaya S12 always need a subwoofer? Well, the answer is clearly no, not really. So if you can find the right amplifier for these speakers, you might find that you don't want to have a sub at all, especially if your room, like mine, isn't exactly enormous. This is 6 meters by 5 meters. It's not tiny, but it's certainly not large. So if you visit your nearest Vivid dealer to go and listen to these loudspeakers, or you hear them somewhere else at a friend's house or at a show, try and get whoever's hosting you to play them with different sets of amplifiers, because their sonic flavor will change. They are, much like the Baba Papa, a shapeshifter. So yeah, if you like this video, please give us a like down below. If you like my attitude towards high-end audio, please consider subscribing to this channel. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching. For things like girls in airports, so then I moved over to the HEGEL H390, And I had a very, no. I've spoken to. And for me, this system here, as convoluted as it is and all the wiring that goes into it, it is an extremely satisfying listen from, oh God, what am I talking about? Now please understand that everything that you've seen in this video is all that I did. So if you want to know how the Vivid sound with another amplifier, I'm really sorry, I can't tell you. I don't know.